But my niece thinks it's absolutely hilarious.
I bet.
She thinks it's hilarious.
Does she eat them?
I felt like she could handle it.
Well, she tries it, and then she's like, but
Alva's out there. I see Liz and company. Hi again. And I see Cassie holding it down out there. Hello. All right, more folks are stumbling into Alva. How about Ponca? Anybody out there at Ponca?
Yeah, we're here.
Cool. Mario, you out there at Woodward? Maybe not yet.
Listen, this is serious business. I'm hungry, so I'm eating my tea.
You want to save your life?
That's gonna save my blood sugar. How's your Thanksgiving, Mr. Randall?
It was really good. I had a lot of food. I had 2 big meals on Thursday and then Saturday. And I still have leftovers, so. Yeah, I'm still trying to digest all that food. Anyway.
Are the kiddos old enough to really enjoy it yet?
They're old enough to enjoy the company. They have a lot of people that play with them. They're 4 and 2, and so they're both boys. They got to throw the football around a bit
Fun.
on Saturday, or at least run around with the football. They can't really throw and catch it.
I'm sure they thought they were making touchdowns.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So they were pretty pumped up about that. So gang, we are getting down to it. Let me see if I can pull up our syllabus. Today we'll go over the rest of cognitive behavioral therapy, and I think we have a demonstration or two. Who is on the docket to demonstrate today? Christina is down. Who else do I have?
Jessica from Alva.
Jessica Ortiz and Alva. Cool. All right, so we'll get those out of the way pretty quickly. Is there a preference on who goes first?
Go first.
Christina is looking at me like she wants to go first. So let me look at the syllabus first, and we'll get underway with our demonstrations. So, okay. We are officially after Thanksgiving. We're in the home stretch. Demos today. Then we have Seeking Safety on Wednesday, and then next Monday we'll have some demonstrations for Seeking Safety. It's a pretty cool technique, so we'll go over this Wednesday. And then on the 7th, we're just going to review. So they'll give you folks some study time. Hopefully it won't take the whole class period to review unless folks have questions. So we'll review some of our techniques and what will be on the exam. Do some housework and call it good. Otherwise, be alert that our exam is on a Thursday, which seems out of place since we meet on Monday and Wednesday.
Thursday, what time? 3?
At 3, I believe.
Graduation.
It's after graduation. I'm going to have to recall that graduation for Josh. I'm just kidding. Let me double check that one more time. I've been known to miss something. Hey, Mario. Good to see you.
Hello, hello.
All right. So then we've got course schedules, fall 2016. And let's go down to final examinations. Our class meets at 3:25 on Monday and Wednesday. So our exam is at 1?
That's for classes meeting at 2 or 2.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you. It's at 3. So hopefully everybody pay attention to my syllabus because the syllabus is right. And so we'll have our final exam a couple of weeks. Seems like I've got my first final tomorrow night, which is crazy. So I instead of grading papers over Thanksgiving break, I was writing a final. So much for good intentions. We know where that gets us.
Very true.
Anyways. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and hear from Christina. What are you demonstrating today?
CBT.
CBT. And where would you like to demonstrate your CBT? Where you sit? Up here?
That's fine. I don't care.
Okay, you're right under the microphone if you want to try it right there.
All right, because I'm kind of quiet.
Okay, let's do that.
I told her she's not allowed to whisper.
I'm getting over bronchitis, so I'm sorry.
No, I have heard you coughing, so I get a little bit of a pass there.
Okay, so Brittany is 25 years old, and she's dropped out of college, and has a 2-year-old, and has trouble with alcohol, and is self-referred because she's wanting to quit.
So her substance of choice is alcohol? Okay.
Hi, Brittany. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming. I just want to go over, check in with you. How did last week go for you?
It was okay. The weekend was kind of hard. I had a lot of friends inviting me out, but I just tried to do what you explained to me as far as not letting them strong arm me into doing it and focus on my daughter. So
Well, that's good. So how did that go for you? If someone offered you a drink, or did you have trouble with that?
yeah, it was hard, to be honest. Pretty much the only reason that I was able to say no, the only thing that really kept me going was my daughter. Otherwise, I know I would have.
I see. So your daughter is very important to you.
Yeah.
All right. So is there anything going on right now that's contributing you to drinking?
Just work is super stressful.
Okay, you're saying work is stressful. Why is it stressful?
Just so busy sometimes that sometimes we don't even get to clock out for our lunch breaks, and working in retail, there's always something going on, and then your managers are barking down your throat to change this and change that, and it's a lot. So at the end of the day, I just want to come home and unplug and forget it all.
Okay, so I hear that you're stressed and the work's really busy, and so what is something that you think is important that you'd like to talk about today?
Just, I guess, how to keep working on staying away from it, because I know it's not a good road to turn to that when I have a bad day, and I don't want my daughter to have to go through that.
Okay. So when you are drinking, what are your feelings?
Well, on the one hand, when I start drinking, I feel kind of torn, because I feel excited because I know that it's going to take effect and help me relax, but then I feel bad because I know I don't want it to get so bad that it affects my daughter. So I feel bad because I know that I should probably not be leaving her with her dad and not be getting babysitters, so I can be doing that.
So you feel that it's bad leaving your daughter to go
Yeah.
drink? Okay.
But I don't want to be around her when I do that.
Well, that's good. So it seems like your feelings get in the way. Like you said, you're stressed, and you said that because of your stress, you'll drink, but then you don't want to drink because of your daughter.
Right.
All right. So it sounds like you've been trying to what we worked on with your urges.
I have.
What are some things that you've tried?
I've tried saying no, and the more I do it, the easier it becomes, but sometimes it's just too hard to resist. And I've tried to not start any contact with people that I know are going to ask me to go out with them, and try to stay away from big presence of alcohol, like stay away from like liquor store or areas that I know have liquor stores, but it's not always possible, so it can get kind of hard.
Okay. Well, so at this point in, how does it make you feel when you are drinking?
Kind of, like I said, kind of conflicted. I know that I don't want to do that to my daughter, and I know it's not a good road to go down, but I also know that it's going to help me relax, and it takes all those stressed feelings away, and I don't know if it's because of the association of it or just the alcohol taking effect, but I stop worrying about work, and I stop being so stressed and caring so much, and I'm able to just relax.
Okay. When do you feel like you have the cravings the most?
Definitely on weekends and evenings.
Weekends and
Because
Friday?
before my daughter was born, that's when I'd go out the most.
Huh. Okay. Do you see any good out of it coming when you drink? Is there anything good
Like, immediate or long term?
immediately?
Just that it helps me relax.
Do you see anything long term?
Definitely not.
No. What are some negative things when you drink?
That I have to leave my daughter somewhere else or expose her to that, which I don't want to do, and that it's affecting her. And then there's probably some physical consequences too, but I don't really know what those would be. But I know alcohol affects you somehow, obviously.
Okay, well, it seems like you don't really see a lot of positive things to drinking, and your daughter is what's keeping you from drinking. So we've talked about your urges, and we've talked about how you trying to stop them and some techniques. So I was thinking, it seems like your feelings get in the way and when you're stressed out. So I was thinking for next week, we would talk about you starting maybe a journal or charting down your feelings, and you can see how that triggers your wanting to use. And you can do that.
Well, what would I write?
Just your mood, your feelings, how your day has been.
Yeah, I could probably do that.
All right, we'll work on that like once a day, throughout the day maybe.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll
I
see you
can
next
do
week.
that. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Okay, class, what observations did you have?
I know she's doing CBT, but I heard a lot of motivational interviewing going on. Sounded like, anyway.
Yeah, I heard some motivational interviewing in there. What did you plan on that, or is that just kind of natural?
Well, I guess I didn't really plan on that, but
Okay, well that's good. No, that's good. I mean, MI lends itself very well to CBT. We don't necessarily want to plant too much information. I think that's one of the big hindrances when people do start to practice CBT is sometimes they come with their own agenda and they try to give it to the client. And the client may not be ready. So and it just it's really that's really an interesting question for people when you go out and you start to practice. Some folks, when they go to a therapist, they expect that therapist to tell them what to do. And in fact, I'd probably say that's more times than not what people are expecting. And so if that's not your style, if your style is more of a motivational interviewing kind of, I want to work where you're at and figure out where you're at, to move together toward a goal. I definitely felt that way. So yeah, Cassie, was that you with the observation there? I'd say you're appropriate with that observation. What else? What other kind of observations do we have?
Your voice is so soft and sweet. But I did like the way that you talked about some homework for the next session, and you brought it back to her feelings. at least 2 or 3 times. So that was good.
Yeah, homework is definitely a CBT. You want people to go out and practice over the week before they come see you again, and then report back on how that worked, how that worked out. Not to be Dr. Phil, how's that working out for you? Don't do that. All right, what else?
She did well at reflecting back what she was saying back to her.
Yeah, really good use of reflection, good use of summary statements, summarizing what you had just done, moving forward. So, yeah, really a good job. I mean, I felt like there was a good conversation going on. It wasn't just didn't seem very, scripted, which is good. You want to have some organic feel to your session and not so contrived. What else?
She showed that there really wasn't any positives to drinking, and it was kind of like to me it was a light bulb, like talking about a kid and all these other things, and kind of showing her, hey, these are all negatives about this. Kind of to me it was a light bulb. Yeah,
that really the long-term, short-term consequences. We talked about that. There's that specific sheet in ACRA, where it talks. It's a functional analysis where it talks about short-term gains versus long-term detriments. You have some positives in the short term. You have some anxiety relief, but in the long term, where are the benefits? Really, Brittany couldn't come up with any. So that's CBT, getting people to think about and weigh out those, possibly irrational beliefs. This drinking is helping me. Well, is it really? Is it really helping you in the long run? Other thoughts? I did like the way that you were very engaged with her. I mean, your attention was definitely focused on her. Great eye contact, natural posturing. So there wasn't anything that felt unnatural about the way you two were interacting. I like that you praised her at one point for her insight. That's definitely behavioral. You offer praise to reinforce thoughts and behaviors. I felt like you really used open-ended questions well. If I'm doing a CBT session, I still want to rely on open-ended questions to help people, analyze their own thoughts. I don't want to be the one. Some people want to go to a shrink to have their thoughts analyzed, which is not necessarily what CBT is. It's having a person understand their own thoughts, their own feelings, and how those interact with their behaviors, so they don't need you. It's okay to be needed for a while, but we don't want the client to be dependent on us. We want the client to figure things out for themselves. So that's one of the really good things about CBT, is it allows people to discover their own answers. I wished you would have used a little bit of handout or some sort of other engagement with her. I think that would have improved her. I mean, she had a lot of good insight, but anytime you can involve somebody like all their different senses into the session. In fact, the CBT thing here actually has some handouts for people that you go over with. It's one of the hallmarks, at least for the CBT techniques that we've covered in class, is they do rely on a written exchange between you and the client. So it's one of the things I would like to see, if you do it again in the future. But otherwise, I mean, you made her feel at ease. You had a really good introduction. How did you feel, Brittany, going through the exercise?
The one thing that really stood out was I felt really validated. Like, she was really listening to me, asking me how I felt, and she let me get to my own inferences and didn't push her. Like you said, she didn't push her agenda. She let me talk about how I saw alcohol, and she didn't kind of try to cue me into saying that it was negative. She let me get there. So
yeah,
it felt like it was easy and she was easy to talk to.
Now you felt, at least from an observation point here, is that you seemed very at ease, together interacting. And that's a hallmark of somebody that's a good counselor, is getting your client to talk and feel at ease in the session. So, good job, very good, thank you. And I like that we kind of bring this up here. It's something that if the direct versus non-directive approach. If you feel that, especially when you get out and you practice on your own, if you feel like that's really kind of a hallmark of who you are, whether you're kind of a directive person, no, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, or you're more kind of where Christina was, which is, I'm going to take your thoughts where you are and try to work together towards your goals. I think that's important to spell out very early on in the relationship with your clients, so they know they can make a choice up front whether they fit with you. Has anybody ever consulted with an attorney before, God forbid? Yes. What's that first meeting like when you consult with an attorney?
Intense.
It's an intense. Was it a voluntary? Did you look for the attorney, or
on behalf of someone?
On behalf of someone. Okay.
So
it's an interview.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, what type of? Tell me about that, Josh. Tell me a little bit more.
It's an interview to see if you guys match, if you guys are on the same page, if you feel like that they are going to be able to do what you need them to do or want them to do, or the same goal. Because they might, you might go there thinking one thing, and they might tell you something totally different. You're like, I think we need a second opinion.
They kind of have to say, they have to tell you, their goal is, if you have a meeting with them to get like a consultation, they're going to give you some information of what you're looking into, but at the same time, they want to reel you in, so are they saying the right words to kind of rip you in? So if you don't kind of fit, because it's all play on words with a lot of that legal jargon stuff. At least with the lawyers that I've met around here, some of them are a little nicer than others, and some of them will be that very directive type. This is how it is. If you like how this is, then hire me. If not, I guess go talk to someone else that's going to fluff you up a bit. So that's the experience I've had with some of the lawyers. I've talked to just a handful regarding one specific issues because I think it's good to get different.
So did you have to pay for all those different consultations?
Thankfully not, but there are some here in town that will make you pay. But there are ones that are free, just so you know. You don't have to pay for consultation, just search around.
And that's typically, that's what I was kind of going for with that question is, I've had, with my own practice, I don't necessarily charge, unless I know that I'm going to continue with somebody, I don't necessarily charge for that first consultation. Now, that's up to you all when you get out there and if you can financially afford not to charge, people that come in, the first time, just to see if I match, if my expertise matches what their life problems are.
Well, the first time is an intake, isn't it?
It really depends. If that person is mandated to see you, I'm not going to give them an option of whether they're going to see me. But if that person is like, say you're in completely private practice, standing alone, and somebody calls you up and says, hey, can you help me out? I'll give you an example. So I'm not specific. I've been trained in couples counseling, but that's not something I've necessarily practiced over 16 years. I've practiced a lot of individual, a lot of substance use, a lot of children and family counseling, not necessarily couple relationship. And so my own practice, whenever I've had several couples refer to me, I'll tell them straight up front, I'm not going to charge you this first session because I'll tell you kind of what my expertise is, what my thoughts will be, and whether you want to stick with me or not. Or if another thing, I think it's our ethical responsibility if we listen to somebody and they're presenting with something that's outside of our expertise, we owe it to them to not, I can handle that, not feel like we can put on a cape and fly off and save the world. We may want to do that, but we really owe it to that person that sat down there to say, that might be something that so-and-so might know more about. And so that's kind of up to you. I bring up that attorney, not to bring up all these bad thoughts that people might have about attorneys, but to really just kind of think about if kind of where Josh is going with it. Do you match? Do you match? And is it something where you would want to, if you're standing alone, say, okay, well, I don't know necessarily that I'll charge you for this first hour because we'll kind of see if I can actually help you or not.
It's kind of funny that you bring attorneys up with that, because some counselors, for work purposes, to pull on a higher workload, may practice that face to face, trying to get them like, I can help you. Maybe they really can't. Just because you would hope that's not always what's going on, but we know there's good counselors and there's bad counselors. Kind of like any profession.
It's like there's good lawyers, there's bad lawyers.
No, like teachers and bad teachers.
But I mean, for the client, it's like you, as a client, like if you're a woman going through a divorce, you don't want to go to an attorney that's like, and I don't believe in alimony, and I don't believe in child support. You can be like,
you guys need to stick together.
Go to a corporate lawyer for a criminal case or things like that.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that the content of expertise is the same, that it matches. So, anyway, thank you, Christina. Good that you jogged all these concepts that we hadn't really talked about. Yeah, directive versus non-directive. You'll know once you get out there what end of that spectrum you lie on. Hopefully there's a little give and take in that. Some people really want you to be more directive with it. Just tell me what you think. And early on, because I used to supervise people for their license, early on I really would rather people not be that directive. I would rather you be kind of where Christina was, which is just kind of getting to know people a little bit more before you're just like, well, do this. Because none of us knows everything right out of the gate. That's why doctors practice, we practice counseling too. So you never get it quite right. You just hopefully keep learning and keep getting better. So, all right, Jessica, are you ready to go out there in Alva?
Yes, we're going to be talking to Erica, and she's going back to school, and she's really stressed out with her job and going back to school, so that's what we'll be discussing.
Okay,
Erica, how are you?
Sounds good.
Oh, okay, all right. Hi, Erica, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking. Thank you for coming in. Sure. So what is something that you would like to talk about today?
Well, last time I was in, we talked, about stress and stuff, and I don't feel like my stress is getting any better. I'm still stressed with school and work, and I feel like I'm almost to that point where I'm just going to explode. Yeah.
And going back to school and work can be really overwhelming at the same time, so I can see how that can be really difficult. Did you try anything maybe out of your normal routine to maybe kind of help with that stress?
I really didn't. I didn't. Okay. I tried to, think about things I could do, but actually going into it, I didn't.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
As you always have these great ideas to think about it, but actually following through can be really difficult.
Yes.
And so one thing I kind of want to talk to you today is maybe about distorted thinking. Okay. It kind of seems like maybe that might be really helpful, maybe where you're at. And one thing I kind of want to discuss is maybe the judging, which is being really self-critical, maybe to ourselves or to others. Yeah. Kind of like I should have, I ought to, and that kind of sounds like where you're at as far as, I should go to the gym or I should do something maybe to help with myself. I really haven't done that yet. So what I would like to kind of do is go over the cognitive triangle. Okay. And kind of show how our thoughts and feelings or even behaviors kind of all interact with one another and kind of give us a better understanding of maybe where we fall. Yeah. So you said that you're really stressed out with work and school. Was there anything specific that happened that made it harder with going to work and school?
Well, right now, finals are coming up and the end of the semester, and it's like the teachers are like, oh, we haven't given you any work until the last few weeks, and it's all piled on now, and I just feel like I have so much to do, so many papers and so many different things, and I just don't know if I'm going to get it done. And having to go to work like 40 hours or more, I don't think I'm going to get it all done.
Okay. So you're kind of like self-criticizing or kind of having that thought of maybe I can't get it done. So I would like to kind of talk about maybe how our unhelpful thinking versus how our helpful thinking can kind of make us be maybe a little more successful on how we get things accomplished.
Okay.
So some of your unhelpful thoughts about finals, maybe that you kind of mentioned just before that you're not going to get anything done that you don't. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's no time with work, and I don't know how I'm going to do a good job on them.
Okay.
That the teachers want, so I can pass the class.
So right here, that's what our thoughts are, having, doing a good job on our work.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that? Maybe if you feel like that you don't do a good job, how are you going to be your feelings?
Well, I mean, I'm stressed. I get anxiety. I feel like I'm isolating myself from people.
Okay.
Someone told me I did a good job on one of my papers, but I think my teacher just said that to make me feel better. Yeah, I don't think it, sometimes I get really anxious and nervous about it.
Okay. So with being anxious and nervous, how does that lead to your behavior?
Well, I kind of just, I don't go out anymore.
You don't go out?
I don't
Okay.
seem to really talk to people about it. I know I have this pile of homework to do, but I don't have the urge to do it. It kind of just sits there, and then I get more homework. And then I'm kind of doing it at the last minute because I'm so overwhelmed with all the homework.
So maybe we're not putting as much effort into our homework because we're thinking about how much we have to do versus actually sitting down and getting it accomplished.
Yeah, and I showed up to work late, because I was so tired. I haven't been sleeping. It's hard.
Absolutely, and when we're really stressed out with work and having all this anxiety and maybe even feeling isolated, that kind of keeps us maybe less motivated to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Especially if we feel like we're not doing things to our full potential. So we kind of put ourselves down a little bit more.
Yeah.
So what I would like to do instead of looking at the unhelpful thoughts, maybe what's something that could be a little more helpful for us.
Okay.
So what's maybe another helpful thought that you can actually have for yourself when you're really stressed out?
I think maybe I could tell myself instead of that I can't do it, I won't be good enough, that maybe I can put forth a good amount of effort. Maybe just try to be more positive about
absolutely.
my thinking.
It's amazing how having just a positive thought can go a long way as far as with our feelings and our behaviors.
Yeah.
So having that positive thought is something really good to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So very good on that. What about your feelings? How do you think your thoughts can influence your feelings?
Well, I think if I think more positive, I won't feel as overwhelmed maybe and anxious. I might help me be a little bit more motivated to do things or to do my homework.
Yes. Homework is very important,
Yeah.
especially with schoolwork, having to get that done.
Yeah.
So when you feel more motivated, how do you feel like your behavior is going to be with that?
Well, I think that I'm going to actually get it done, and instead of just thinking about it and just say in my mind, like, I know I need to get it done, but it's not getting done. I think being a little bit more positive and motivated, it's going to help me actually do it.
Right.
So I think that will help a lot.
Okay. So doing this example, I kind of want to give you an idea of how closely related our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can affect one thing, especially when we have unhelpful versus helpful thoughts. So, with this in mind, what I would like for you to do as your practice exercise is to maybe, you said last week that you would like to work out, and you haven't done it in a while. So one challenge I would like to have you do this week is maybe working out, and kind of have a log about how you feel or how stressed out you feel after you work out. Do you feel more better about yourself, or do you feel even more stressed out? Kind of keep a journal about how you feel.
Okay.
Very good. And I will see you next week. You have any other questions?
No, I think that's it. I think I can do that.
All right. Well, I will see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
It did have a little diagram. You just can't see it. Sorry.
Yeah, I can see you. I couldn't see Erica. So,
oh, you couldn't see Erica? Sorry.
You look like.
I didn't even think about that.
You look
Yeah,
like
just
you
have
were.
a little cognitive triangle.
Talking to herself.
Is she right next to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you see
So
her?
it
No.
looked. I can't see her. So it looked like you had good eye contact.
I hope so.
She did.
It looked like your body language was engaging, like you were leaning in toward her. I don't know what she was doing. She might have been cowered on the floor.
We were facing each
Yeah,
other.
we were face to face.
Okay. All right. I'm kind of giving you some grief. So, class, what did you observe? Please give some feedback.
I think she did a really good job, like reassuring me or validating what I was saying. I also think she kind of brought in a little bit of the motivational interviewing too.
Yeah, a little bit. I picked up on some open-ended questions and some validation. So, yeah, those kind of go hand in hand with CBT. When we move into CBT and you use the affirmation and praise, that's more of an intentional try to be as a reinforcer, not somebody that. Did everybody hear that?
No.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of feedback here. So, in fact, if that continues, I don't know that we can continue. Yeah, that's hard to focus.
That's annoying.
Okay, now whatever happened. Okay, I think it's over. No, it's not. It's like.
Mike.
Is somebody's mic open? Or are they really close to it, possibly?
No, not here.
Okay. How about Mario? Are you getting any feedback out there in Woodward?
Yeah, it sounds like a snowy TV.
Yes, it does sound like a snowy TV. Okay, well it's subsided for a minute. Okay.
It's annoying
so,
over here.
Do what?
It's pretty loud over here.
It might be your location. Mario, try to mute your mic one time. See what happens, if you can. Okay, that stopped. It's silent. So I guess, Mario, if you need to speak, take yourself off. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mute you, dude. It made a big difference. I can't hear it now. Okay, sorry, class. I was. If nobody was hearing that, Enid was definitely hearing it, and it was kind of hard to focus in on what we were trying to do. Okay, so I like that you tried to identify distorted thinking. What you appeared to do, at least from my observation, it was more of a classic kind of CBT demonstration with trying to really focus in on what you would think as the disordered or unhelpful thoughts. I like that you weighted out helpful versus unhelpful. Was there a particular script that you're working off of to get your terminology?
No, actually, I had talked to my supervisor last week about just like traditional CBT because I didn't want to like focus on other ones, bring too much of that in there. So I really just wanted to focus on like irrational thoughts and distorted thinking. And she actually gave me this worksheet called something therapist overview, and it talked about negative thoughts, triggers that negative feeling. But it really wasn't a script. It just gave me a whole list of different type of distorted thinking. But I have, at least with being in the field for a little bit, so I have a general idea as far as that terminology goes.
Yeah.
I thought she did a great job about being educational.
Yeah, that's one of the things as CBT, we are, as CBT therapists, we are educational.
Yeah, more directive.
More in that way, we are directive. Because we are, whereas in MI, you're not supposed to be seen as an expert. Once you move over into a more CBT approach in therapy, you are an expert. That's where it is kind of like people are coming to you because you have more knowledge than they do to help them out. So I did, good observation, Nikki. She did give her information that she wasn't aware of. The cognitive triangle. Noting that a negative attitude carries over into your feelings, or a self-defeating attitude carries over into your feelings. I felt like you did a really good job identifying feelings. Did you write down? I couldn't tell on your think, feel, do
Yeah, I was
triangle.
writing down her feelings, as we went along. I was just erasing it and with the helpful. It's a little laminated diagram. Yeah.
That's prepared right there, laminated.
That was prepared. Nice work. Yeah, that's very appropriate. So anytime that clients can see what they're speaking about, it becomes more real if you write things down for them. So yeah, that's good. What did you focus more on? Did you intentionally focus on what part of the triangle? Did you feel like you focused more on thoughts, feelings, or behaviors?
I kind of feel like I hoped I focused more on thoughts, but I feel like my focus more on the behaviors, our outcomes. But in general, I just wanted to focus on the triangle. I feel like we don't really sometimes, even as adults, I notice that we don't really know the difference between thoughts and feelings. So that was really important to kind of touch base on that as far as CBT goes.
Yeah, I felt like you really, at least from my observation, it looked like there was much more focus on the thoughts, on the T of the TFD cycle. And that's, like I said, it was more classic, I felt like, in its approach of what people think about in CBT therapy. So I appreciate that in your presentation, particularly between, making the distinction between helpful and unhelpful thoughts. Good job reflecting, very engaging. I felt like there was good interaction between you and Erica, very expressive with your speech. If a person, and I'm glad you went to the exercise. It's kind of like thinking backwards. The exercise can influence the feelings, or it could also influence the thoughts. Mm-hmm. If somebody exercises, and so that wasn't really brought out that clearly, but I know because of the think, feel, do, I know where you're going with that. It was kind of like at the end. Oh, by the way, we're going to exercise. But that was the only thing that I could say that if you had a little bit more time to develop that with her,
right.
That would probably be the only improvement I would suggest. Okay. But other than that, it was a good job. Very good. Okay, so to finish this CBT out, at least for our exam, we'll be utilizing some things in our textbooks. And so what was demonstrated today is not necessarily what's in your text. And that's okay. Cognitive behavioral therapy is very versatile. You can pull in a lot of different techniques. There's a huge body of evidence supporting different ways of doing therapy. So the class gets to see a little bit more of the think, feel, do cycle. I'll put it up here. Okay, so let's take, for example, I'll give us a case example that we'll work through. And I worked with a gentleman not too long ago that, and we'll relate it a little bit more to substances. So I worked with a gentleman not too long ago that led a fairly successful life, held a job, took care of, had a family, and had a traumatic experience. And so on the heels of this traumatic experience, there were a lot of things that appeared to go downhill in this person's life. Their definitely their mood, their anxiety, stress levels. I definitely saw it, if I'm taking it from a CBT lens, think about thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, definitely saw a more pessimistic type of outlook, not as positive, more self-defeating in thought processes. And as far as behaviors manifested, lack of sleep, probably sacrificing some productivity at work, sacrificing quality relationships at home. And in thinking about this individual, they went to their doctor, and their doctor prescribed them an anti-anxiety medication. And one of the toughest things that we do in therapy is trying to navigate. It's real easy if somebody comes in, they're addicted to cocaine. You're like, well, that's illegal, so we need to stop that. But it's a different thing if somebody comes in and they've had an injury. Let's say they've had a physical injury, and so they're on pain medications. Or in this person's case, they had a psychological injury and they're on prescribed medications, for anxiety. So what do we know about anti-anxiety medication like Valium, like Xanax, and also what do we know about like pain medications like Ortab, OxyContin? What do we know about the effects the longer that a person takes them?
More they're gonna want more.
They're gonna have a tolerance. They're gonna develop a physical tolerance.
The less their body will naturally make the chemicals that will calm them down or deal with the pain, the less likely they are to be able to cope with it naturally.
Yeah. So not only is there going to be and there will be withdrawal from all of those substances for certain. But what Nikki alluded to is a long-term prescription actually changes your brain chemistry. It changes the natural levels of the opioid receptors. It changes the natural functioning of those receptors. It also your GABA receptors that work with Xanax and Valium. It changes your neurochemistry over a long period of time. And so I'm going to put, anytime you see just a triangle, think of change, not just a cognitive triangle. So change neural wiring. So just maybe not to the same degree as a substance like methamphetamine, where you're thinking about significant pruning, where you're thinking about the dopamine transmitters not being able to function as effectively because there aren't as many receptor sites. It does something to the same type of way with anxiety and also pain receptors, which is why if you go into a doctor and let's say you've been on prescribed pain medications for a long time and they need to prescribe you, let's say you have another injury and they need to prescribe you more, well, they really need to watch their dosage because there's already a very high tolerance for that medication. And so you don't want to go past the point where you're shutting down somebody's respiration and really shutting down their body. So it gets to be very tricky. So how would you manage that as a professional? How do you manage those type of situations where somebody's really had a long-term prescription and they're legally prescribed that, but it appears to be affecting their functioning? Cricket. See, it's tough. This is one of the tougher things we do because we're not the MDs, we're not the DOs, but we are the substance abuse counselors. And so I'll take you through the case study. So I was working with this guy, and so he went to his doctor and was prescribed Valium. alprazolam. And so for a long period of time, for in the short term, what do you think happened in the short run with taking the daily prescription of an anti-anxiety medication like Xanax?
You probably had some relief.
Had some, absolutely, Jessica, had some relief.
But then it wears off.
Was able to get some sleep. Something that would wake this person up in the middle of the night with night terrors, with and then unable to go back to sleep. So imagine yourself being able to go to sleep about 11 o'clock every night, and then waking up at 3 or 2, and then being awake till throughout the whole day. Your day starts at 2 or 3 in the morning, because once you wake up, your thoughts are rapid. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there at some point. But so in the short term, it was good. Now, if you look at recommendations, and there are more studies coming out on Xanax and Valium and the GABA agonists, that in the short term, about 90 days is the max for before it starts to really, at least from what the research studies say, starts to becoming counterproductive. And so think about early on when we had let me illustrate it a different way. So this line is our homeostasis, and so if a person is high on a substance or intoxicated on a substance and they come down, what do we know? What is the opposite of intoxication?
Withdrawal.
It's withdrawal. And how does a person feel when they're in withdrawal?
Horrible.
Horrible. It's the opposite of how they feel when they're taking the substance. So if you're taking the anti-anxiety medication, and you feel okay, so you're taking the Xanax or the Valium, and you take it, oh man, I'm chilled out. Oh man, I feel so much better. I'm not thinking about that. I'm able to go to sleep. So after a while, your tolerance builds up and up and up and up and up. And now you're taking, 2 or 3 or 4, or now you're getting on a Klonopin or a different type of a higher strength anti-anxiety medication to try to combat that. Your body's getting used to it. So then what happens? What's the opposite of anti-anxiety? Anxiety. Honestly, look in the DSM and look up anxiolytic withdrawal, and those are bad symptoms. So your heartbeat, you have a heartbeat of over 100, sweating, insomnia, panic attack, which Xanax is for panic attack, but you can have panic attack coming off Xanax if you've taken it for too long. So what happened was with this person is this individual is they got some relief. They did some things in therapy. They were working in therapy, and they continued to come to therapy. But it got to a point where the person was not functional. The person didn't make it to work. The person was not sleeping. Was waking up at 4:30 and then taking another pill. And the person was knowing that this is not doing me well. So the person stayed on the pills for a year, and things started to really spiral out of control, and started to affect personal life. Started to affect just like you would look in the DSM. Now, was this illegal? No. So another thing is that this individual would go to the doctor and say, "Hey, I've got these complaints," and so the doctor would send him to a specialist and say, "Hey, well, let's think about this, or let's think about this." But the doctor never adjusted the dosage of Xanax. So I watched this, and I watched this go on for a while. And so finally, in the CBT approach, I looked at, and I found this person was educated, and I found 3 or 4 studies, and I got the abstract. So just like I had you all do, which going in and looking, in the research studies, looking at what happens, and presented these and emailed them to the individual. And so he didn't come the next week to therapy. He thought, well, I lost him. And that can happen. I mean, if you confront somebody, and I try to do it in a gentle way, in not sort of a roundabout way, but in a softened way, where it's, you know, you're ruining your life by doing this. No, here's what some research studies say. You might take a look at this and think about it. And so, but he did come back the week afterwards and said, "What do I need to do? I think this is probably more of a problem for me than anything else right now. So what do I need to do?" So what would have been? So teach me at this point. What should we do at that point? Because we've got a doctor that's saying, you need to take this for your anxiety, but we have our own expertise and our own client saying this is making my anxiety worse. What's our next step?
Helping them wean off of it.
How do we do that, Josh?
I'd say some like empowering, teaching them meditation or mindfulness or things to cope, with the things that he's trying to treat, the panic attacks and the anxiety, so that he's able to rely more on himself and say, okay, maybe go, try these things for 5 minutes before you take a pill, or give yourself 10 minutes before you take a pill, things like that.
Absolutely. Before we even, I like where you're going, and that is where I went. But we're even simultaneous to giving those copings, those replacements. What should we do about that physician?
There should probably be some communication.
Thank you. Yes, just there needs to be some communication. And if the client isn't strong, if the client isn't strong enough to do that, have the client fill out a release form where you can talk to the clinician, where you can write a report and say, these are the things I observe, and these are the things I've observed over the past year, meeting with this individual once per week over the past year. And so that way you can have some correspondence, and hopefully have some support too, and hopefully educate the physician as well. Physicians are wanting an immediate resolution, because when people come in their office, they've already got God knows how many patients, and they have maybe 5, 10, 15-minute window with this person. And this person, I can write this out and you can get immediate relief. They're not going to be the one with the client one time a week, 52 times over a year. Or you're going to be able to see these things. So what I'm telling you is when you're out there, when you're working, you should be empowered as the expert, because you've been able to see these things, even if it means going, at least consulting with somebody with an MD, which has a specialty in internal medicine and all the different things, but you have a specialty in addiction. And they don't necessarily get that specialty, and that's something that they go after. So keep that in mind, especially a general practitioner. General practitioner, good about referring out to a specialist. They'll listen to you. Honestly, if you present it in a professional way, they will listen to you. If you come out and act like you know everything, probably not. But if you say, I've considered these options and seen this client go down, he'll possibly consider a different things. And so this person, to kind of bring this back to full circle, this person began to develop these thoughts. I can't make it out. Okay. So, is that a functional thought?
No.
It kind of goes back to Jessica with the shoulds, shouldn't. Think about I can't. Those irrational. Well, can you or can't you? Just think about this. So feelings. I can tell you.
Does that kind of depend on what their psychiatric mental state is? Because if you've got someone with schizophrenia, that probably should be on medication.
Okay. So let me qualify this. I'm not talking about all medicine.
Okay.
I'm talking about medicines that can be abused. Now, it's like a medicine for schizophrenia, medicine for depression. People typically aren't going out and abusing their Zoloft. Or, man, give some of that Zoloft, man. Yeah, I chopped it up and snorted it, and man, I feel so, happy. I'm just completely happy. Just kidding. No, so people don't typically do that. Or, man, where's that Trileptal? Man, I just can't wait to get... So, people, or even like Haldol. The medicines that, for bipolar, people don't feel good taking medicines for bipolar or typically with schizophrenia and if you're taking a medication for depression, it's not making you woo, yeah, I'm great, man, let's go out and party. You're not going to go out and party on some Paxil or Effexor. Gonna go pop a few Effexors and go out and stay out all night and rave. So
my massive headache that I know.
Man, that's the lunch that sure gave me a rush.
The next day. So I'm just talking about the ones. That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that. So I'm just talking about the ones that people have a propensity to abuse and cause euphoria. Generally, if a substance is not causing some sort of euphoria, people aren't going to abuse it.
You're just talking about the fun ones.
I'm just talking about the fun ones. So his thoughts are, I can't make it without meds, feeling very powerless. And I'd say, this person's esteem, where it once was very high, it's just bottomed out. And then behaviors, work performance went down. Interpersonally went down. Family. So, what did we work on? So, what do we target? What can we target when we're working on the cognitive triangle?
Any of them.
What's that?
Any of them.
You can target any of them, but two in particular.
Thoughts and feelings?
Yes. Well, no. You want to work on. You can work on changing thoughts, and what else?
Behaviors.
And you work on changing behaviors. The byproduct will be, what happens to the feelings.
They'll change.
That's the byproduct. So these are the two places to work. So, like Nikki said, and this person was very open to relaxation. What are some relaxation exercises?
Spaghetti.
yeah, you can do, that's PMR, progressive muscle relaxation. You can do deep breathing.
Bubbles.
Yep, bubble breath. I didn't do this with this particular adult. I didn't do the bubble breaths, but
Oh, come on, they're fun.
As hopeless as this person was, I didn't feel like the bubble breaths were what they needed at the moment. But
everybody needs bubbles in their life.
Meditation. Okay, here's what I want folks to do. So we'll do one technique before we get out of here. Okay, everybody sit up comfortably in your chair. And this is. Watch me first, and then I'll give you a couple of minutes to do this. So there's a meditation exercise, and so this works with people when they have. Oh, Brittany's already going to sleep.
I'm tired. Sorry.
Sorry, there's a big yawn. So anyway, so there's this meditation exercise, and it was provided to me by the psychiatrist that worked at 12 and 12 in Tulsa, and prescribed this to me to give to a person with bipolar disorder. person suffering from bipolar. And one of the things about bipolar, if you're in a manic state, what do your thoughts do?
They race.
Your thoughts are going everywhere. And so imagine trying to sleep if you're in a manic state. And so it's kind of that way when you're coming off of Xanax, because your thoughts, your thoughts are used to being depressed. And so if you're trying to stop Xanax, your thoughts start to go, they start to go everywhere, and you start to worry about things and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So this is a mental discipline exercise. This is an exercise for mental discipline. So what you do is you come to a comfortable place, and so this is my assignment for you tonight. You all have homework for me. So you'll come back Wednesday and tell me how this works. So tonight, when you're going to sleep, when you're going to bed, so everybody hopefully has a quiet place to go to bed, and you don't have to speak out loud to your partner or if anybody else is in the house. Just lay down and get comfortable on your pillow. And so what you'll do is you'll slowly get comfortable, and you'll start taking a deep breath in. And then you'll slowly exhale. And in your head, silently, you'll count 1. And so the goal is, each time you take a breath, every time you exhale, you start to count in sequence. 2. 3. And the point of it is to focus only on the number. Now, you'll have thoughts that come up. And you'll have other thoughts that try to distract your counting. The goal is to get to 100, counting silently in your head without having to lose. Because if you lose count, you've got to start over at 1 again. And so if you've never done this, I didn't make it to 10 without having. No, seriously, and so thoughts will come and use this image, just like horses or clouds, pass like horses going through a field. Let them just go in one ear and out the other, like clouds just passing by on a partly cloudy day. Just let them go. Don't try to stop them. Just let them come and go. So then this is what it looks like. So everybody kind of sit there, take in a deep breath, count silently. 1. Inhale. Exhale. 2. And you go as slow and as deep as possible. Preferably, I'll stop up here. Preferably, preferably what you'll do is you'll do it with your eyes closed, and you'll do it silently, and you'll breathe very slowly, counting the exhales. You'll have to start over. I've never met anybody, and you can't use outside agencies. You can't write the number down. You can't hold up 1. You just got to use your internal voice, and the only thing that you then focus on is that number that you're on.
Is that a good way to put you to sleep?
Yeah, I just about fell asleep.
It is.
I got a 6 and I was like,
It is honestly, because and if you fall asleep, you win. because really a person, if they have racing thoughts, it calms them down. It's like a Zen meditation, except it's more of a mental discipline, and they've done research, and the best thing, honestly, is when you have to start over. Your brain, because you don't quit. You come back to the point where, let's say you mess up on that, you get lost between 4 and 5, and was I on 4 or was I on 5? crap, I got to start over. The point is coming back to one and starting over. That's when your brain starts to heal the most, and starts to change its physical structure the most. When you can actually come back, start over at one, and then do it again. So there's your technique for the day. CBT. Okay, so let me bring this to a close. So we did a lot of these things. We did exercise. Exercise works well to get rid of the extra cortisol that your body's producing, and it doesn't have something that's weighing it down. And it took this person, and so also the consultation with the doctor. So the medication, you can't just go straight off of a long-term prescription of anxiolytics, benzos. Do not go cold turkey off of benzos, particularly if the dose is high. You want to titrate. You want to step that down. And so with the doctor, working with the patient, step that down over. I mean, it took. He was on it a year. It took, I can't remember whether it was 2 or 3 months. It took either 60 or 90 days to completely get away from it. I mean, he still had occasions where it was like, he'd come to me and say, man, I made it 4 days, but I just had to, there was nothing I could do. I had to, and you know, don't feel like that's defeat, because that's what it's going to take to come off of some of these things. So same thing with pain medications. Try to make a parallel in your own mind with somebody trying to get off of a pain medication. Hopefully you can do it a little quicker than that. Pain medications don't have the same type of really devastating withdrawal physically that can be life-threatening. So anyway, so over time, the individual, I can make it without meds, and felt empowered. And with this, knowing that the person had been through a trauma and was now functioning without meds, and there is, and all these things relate together. So all of these things improved. If you can make an intervention on one, there is a good likelihood that you're going to improve all of them. So that's the magic of CBT. I definitely practice it, and hopefully you will come to a point where it's proficient with you as well. So anyway, we'll come back on Wednesday and talk about seeking safety. Thank you, Christina and Jessica. You all did excellent today. I will see you all Wednesday. Take care.
They shouldn't be.
Those are the only things that get out.
First part again? Yeah. No. Yeah, Liz DWYER 50. No E, yeah.
Thank you.
No, let's just reserve that room and then I'll come back that later.